fresh off the G5 jet. I'm on my way to a brand new kit.
Welcome back, eSIM Studios podcast, live stream, episode number 217. I want to welcome everybody in to the channel, get some quick tech news today. I do have some other obligations here after the show, so it's going to be rather quick, although I have two, maybe three. We'll see how fast we can get through it. Huge stories. So, involves iPhone, Android, Apple, Samsung, among others. But I want to remind everybody, if you miss this podcast or possibly one of the stories that we talk about, you can always catch us on the replay. So I'm streaming across multiple YouTube channels, multiple platforms. And if you do miss this, I mentioned, please go to our eSIM Studios YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, simply search in eSIM Studios. All of our content will pop up. Now, also, we are also on every podcast platform available. That's correct. So I'll upload these and other stuff too. I have audio podcast specific content as well. So wherever you get your podcast, right? Doesn't matter. We're there. So Samsung podcasts, Apple podcasts, iHeartRadio music app, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast, simply search in eSIM Studios and we shall emerge on top of the tech podcast. I think we got up to number 10 on tech podcasts. FeedSpot ranks the tech, they rank a lot of different podcasts, but in the tech section, we're number 10. So continues to grow. Thanks to you. So this week, I promise I'm going to schedule a giveaway for everybody. So don't miss. We'll schedule it for Friday. I'll schedule it early. We'll do a Friday show. We'll definitely do a giveaway of something. I'll go through my gadgets, everything I have here, and we'll do giveaway Friday. So don't miss Friday's show. We'll have a giveaway for you. Now, let's get into it. Did say I'm up against it, so let's jump into this right away. So, if you see the news, you might have missed this. Now, it's a rather big story, and it just broke. So, what it is at the moment is, check this out. You're not going to believe this. So, well, let's do the Samsung first, and we'll do the Apple news second. So, as you know, if you've been a subscriber and or watcher, hang on one second. Hang on. I got to say hello to my people here. So, Brian, thank you very much for joining the show today. Always a good supporter. Thank you, Daniel, as well. Thank you. I hope y'all are both doing very good today. Hope y'all had good days, and hopefully this afternoon will be just as good. So, now let's jump into this. So as you know, Samsung is releasing a special edition of the sorts of their latest foldable. So Samsung released, I know I'm getting more Apple fans tuning in, so it may not be, up to par with what is going on in the Android world. So Samsung, I'm sure everybody knows, have foldables, but the foldables they just released, the Fold 6 and Flip 6. Samsung's doing something they've never done before. So before the Fold 6 and Flip 6 were released, we heard of a mysterious third device. A sort of Ultra, right? We didn't really have much confirmation or even rumors to go on, right? So as time went on, and we didn't even know when the release date was going to be. We thought they could come out with 3 foldables on launch day. Now, as time went on, and obviously the launch went on with 2 being released, we figured, well, I always had this in the back of my mind, right? So, so whatever happened to that 3rd edition? Well, we're starting to get a little more information as time goes on, and I think it's getting close to being launched, which we will discuss here shortly. But as I mentioned, details are slowly emerging of this 3rd foldable by Samsung. And we reported, I believe it was on Friday or Saturday, that this device was going to be very thin, right? It's going to be much thinner than the Fold 6 is right now. They're going to shave a couple of millimeters off the thickness of both panels. So it should be, when it's folded closed, should be 4 to 5 millimeters thinner than what it already is folded closed, which it's already a fairly thin device. But what they're going to do, I think what this is going to look like, and I've always wanted a foldable to look like this. So I said, man, I've always gotten the flips, right? I love the flips, but never got a fold. They just looked, I don't know, it was just something about them just didn't really fit in the hand too well. And they just look weird because most of the time, honestly, I would use it folded closed, where it's like a regular phone, but it's just too big, too bulky, too heavy, just too weird looking. What they're going to do, I think, is, and I've always thought, man, it would be super cool if they could just make like two S24 Ultras put together and then make it a foldable. Well, guess what? I believe we're going to get something kind of similar to that, because we're now starting to learn that this new Z Fold 6 special edition, quote unquote, we don't have an official name. We don't have any terminology to tag along with this. We got word it's going to be thinner. Now, check this out. We got word it's going to have the same camera setup as the S24 Ultra. So it's going to be getting the 200 megapixel sensor, right? And I always thought Samsung, we're not necessarily ripping customers off, but I've always thought, damn, why don't they're charging damn near $2,000 for this device, damn near 2 racks for this device, and they're not even putting the best camera setup on it. Like what are y'all doing? And that's part of the other reason why I hadn't bought one, because they don't put the best cameras on them. It doesn't make sense. Now it looks like this might be the perfect foldable, not only for me, but for you as well. So it's going to be thinner, basically like two phones slapped together, and then it just folds together. It's going to have the full S24 Ultra camera setup. And may I mention the same camera setup that the S25 Ultra is going to have. We're learning now that the S25 Ultra is basically going to have the same camera setup, same sensors. It's going to be slight. It's going to have a little different dimensions, and that's all they need, right? Just a little tweak, because it already kind of looks like two phones stuck together, but it's still kind of too tall. So they're just going to change a few millimeters here, a few millimeters there, and I think slowly over time, possibly next year, the Fold 7 should be essentially two phones stuck together that just fold open and closed. And this is our very first look. So that's why I have this up here. Our very first look. So this is what it's going to look like, at least the camera setup. Now, it's going to look familiar. You're going to see certain design language sort of morph into flagship device from Samsung to flagship device. This same camera setup now, minus the island around the sensors, but the new S25 Ultra, upcoming S25 Ultra, it's going to have the same sensors, or at least the same look as the sensors you see right there. It's going to have a more pronounced ring around the cameras. Now, the island is not going to be there on the S25 Ultra, but the camera island you see there is exactly what's coming on the Fold 6 Special Edition. Leaker Evan Blass, EV Leaks, has shared two renders, but without any further context. But we can guess what it is, because this is the next device Samsung is going to put out. Remember, it wasn't ready in time. I'm sure they wanted to release it alongside the Fold 6, but it just wasn't ready in time. So they said, you know what, let's go ahead and release the Flip 6 and Fold 6, and then we will release this special edition at a later time. These renders could be, it is, wink wink, of the upcoming Z Fold 6 Special Edition for South Korea, which could be rebranded as the Samsung W25 in China. So unfortunately for us here in the US, they're not releasing it to us. This is only coming to, it's only going to be released, It's only going to be released in China and South Korea, why? I have no idea. But it is what it is. Now, you can still get one, or you can grab one on eBay a couple weeks after they launch this, but you're going to be paying probably 25% more. So instead of paying $2,000, you're probably going to be paying $2,500, which is insane, but it is what it is, right? Supply and demand, I guess. According to previous leaks, the device could launch on October 18th with open sales on October 25th. Now, I don't believe, here's the second photo. Whoops, where is it? I don't believe that, here it is. I don't believe that they're going to launch it on October 18th. That's 4 days away. There would be something else. I mean, unless they just want to drop a surprise bomb on us and say, surprise. And again, look, normally if something was literally 3 or 4 days away from launch, we would have something else than just a leak from EV Leaks on Twitter, right? There would be something from Samsung, some other leaks that would kind of point us in the direction of, hey, it's really, really close to being launched. I'm guessing it's going to be released next month, but I don't have any news. I don't have any sourcing on that. It's just a pure guess out of thin air. But I would guess probably 4 weeks away, 5 weeks away, maybe 6 weeks away. But I can not necessarily guarantee you. I would almost bet that they release this before the holiday season, before New Year's, before the end of 2024. You will get a new Z Fold 6 Special Edition. Now, the other picture here looks like it's just the side. Now, that's not the only news and or special features of this Z Fold 6. How could I forget to mention the crease? Or shall I say, what crease? So crease haters out there in the world, you might rejoice because it appears, I've heard this device has close to, if not a zero crease display. And I know your Apple fans out there are wondering, what the hell is he talking about? When you have a foldable device, when you fold it closed, when you completely open it, wherever that hinge is at, wherever the screen folds, there's a slight crease down that display wherever it folds. Now, Apple, I'm not going to beat this like a dead horse like I have been doing. The iPhone Flip scheduled to come out on the iPhone 18 series. Apple only greenlit that project, only greenlit that SKU, only greenlit the iPhone Flip if it was going to have no crease. And by God, what do you know? Apple finally figured it out. They patented a new hinge about 3 or 4 months ago that allows a display to be open and closed with zero crease, meaning when you open it up, it has a regular display with no little crease right there. Now, it hasn't really bothered me in the past, and it has gotten better as each series leaks, right? As each series has gone on, it has gotten a little less noticeable and a little less noticeable, but it looks like Samsung might have done it. I'm not going to say it should be a zero crease. Now, for those of y'all that say, well, can't Samsung just copy what Apple did? No, because Apple patented their hinge, meaning you can't copy us. So it's up to Samsung to figure it out. But they've been doing this longer than anybody. So but it's just kind of surprising that Apple beat them to the punch when Samsung's been doing this for many, many, many years. But it is what it is. Samsung was going to get to a zero crease display at some point. I thought it would be done maybe in the next 2 years. But apparently, if there's no crease on this Fold 6 Special Edition, it should be a very, very minor crease. And we'll just have to wait and see, right? I'm sure if they have a zero crease display, it would be everybody would rejoice. And again, this is a new hinge, so this will not use the same hinge that's in the standard Z Fold 6. This is from what I understand, a completely redesigned hinge. So maybe they do have something up their sleeve. Maybe they do have something to present to all these Samsung and lovers out there and foldable lovers out there. So could this be the device for you? I wonder. I even asked myself that same question. Could this be the device? Now, something interesting before we get to the Apple story, and then we'll get out of here. What processor is Samsung going to go with? Because Qualcomm Snapdragon is releasing the 8 Gen 4 flagship CPU here in just a few days. Is it going to release with the new 8 Gen 4 inside? Or is Samsung going to release this with the older 8 Gen 3, the current 8 Gen 3? Not for long, but what are they going to do? Because it would look kind of weird if Samsung released this Z Fold 6 after the announcement of this new flagship CPU, and it has last year's flagship CPU. See what I'm saying? So we haven't gotten any word, any news, any updates on what they're going to go with. I would hope if they're going to charge this much money for a phone, damn it, it better have all the specs on it, right? It better have top of the line everything on this device. That's one thing that really, really bugs me about these expensive phones, and I'm not just singling out Samsung. I'm singling out everybody. If you're gonna be charging damn near $2,000 for a phone, man, you gotta give us a fully loaded device. It's unfair, and that's why I haven't been one of the few reasons I haven't really pulled the trigger on a fold model yet. But this one, we'll have to wait and see what the official specs are, but Samsung might change my mind. And again, you'd have to get it on eBay or a third-party swap or something like that, a third-party platform, because they are not selling it in the United States. And if you say, screw it, I'm going to get it no matter what, just beware. And we'll report on this as time goes on. Beware, all of the bands, all the frequencies in the device might not fully be operational in the United States. Kind of like a nothing phone is here in the US. If you have T-Mobile, should be good. But if you have Verizon, not so much. If you have AT&T, not so much. So be on the lookout. Stay tuned to eSIM Studios. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you get all the news, all the information on this outstanding, what appears to be this outstanding device. Now let's move on to Apple. Quick Apple news for the day. Side note, I got this new iPhone 16 Pro Max. I only picked it up one time today, and that was to turn off the alarm. So I've been very busy, very, very, very busy today, and battery life's pretty good though. It's been almost 12 hours, and it only burned through like 8% battery. So battery life's pretty good on here, but not rushing to use it. So check this out. So when it comes to Apple, we know the iPhone 16 Pro Max obviously just released, and we're already talking about future iPhones, right? So we're already talking about iPhone 17. I've already reported the new colors Apple's bringing, right? So kind of boring colors this year. You got a white, you got a black, and you got a kind of a, what do they call it, desert titanium, right? Just if you put all four of them side by side, kind of bland, kind of boring. Next year, not so much. So next year, we reported that the new iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max are going to get a makeover, a do-over, so to speak. Getting new colors, bold colors, sort of bringing the same boldness from the iPhone 16 and 16 Plus to the iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max. So you're going to get new colors, right? Which is cool. You're going to get a new iPhone model. The iPhone 17 Air, a razor-thin device. Everybody's heads are going to explode when Apple announces that. And we got some information on some specs. So today we got word that Apple... Now, it's very interesting because, as you know, Apple AI, it's been all over the place. Now, it hasn't officially been released, although I believe it's going to make an appearance let's see here, right around the corner. iOS 18.1 at the end of this month should hit devices, and iPhone users that have a new 16 series or the 15 Pro or Pro Max should see a few. Apple's going to do a slow rollout of their Apple AI, but nonetheless, if you have a model that qualifies for Apple AI, you will see some features rolled out in iOS 18.1 here in the next few weeks. But we got word that, and speaking of Apple AI, timeout. Speaking of Apple AI, it requires a lot of power, a lot of performance, a lot of memory. And that's why I said if your device qualifies. Well, Samsung, who's running AI on their devices, have a lot of RAM, right? And they're increasing it, I believe, next year. I think some of their models are going to have 16 gigs of RAM. The Pixel 9 Pro series, Pro and Pro XL, have 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, for Apple to qualify for Apple AI to have a device, you have to have a M series chip, right, on a MacBook or MacBook Air or iPad. That'll qualify you. But you also have to have at least 8 gigabytes of RAM, right? So that would mean the 15 Pro Max and the 15 Pro would qualify. And then all the iPhones this year were released with 8 gigabytes of RAM. But those wondering, is that enough RAM to run AI? Because Samsung got 12 and 16 gigs. Google's running 16 gigs on their new devices of RAM. Well, Apple, it looks like, always late to the party on some of these things, but we got word today that Apple is going to boost the RAM. Thank God. Apple's going to boost the RAM on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Is rumored to be the only iPhone with 12 gigs of RAM. So a little bit of good news, bad news, right? Good news, Apple's going to really jack the RAM up. Now, I say really, if they really want to jack it up, go to 16, like Google or like Samsung's going to do. 12 is more than enough to fully use some of these features. And I think Apple's going to introduce more AI features as time goes on. So as we get closer to the 17 series launch, you're going to see them roll out more and more features. And with that rollout of more and more AI features, you're going to need more memory, right? It needs somewhere to store that random access memory. And if you run out of memory, your AI features aren't going to work, right? I mean, that's what it boils down to. Now, the interesting thing, the bad news, so to speak, it's only going to be available, not the AI, but the 12 gigs of RAM is only going to be available on the 17 Pro Max, meaning the 17 Pro is not getting 12 gigs of RAM. What about the 17 Air? Apple is going to discontinue the Plus model, so there will be no 17 Plus. They're going to insert the 17 Air, that razor-thin device. Is that getting 12 gigs of RAM? Right? Or is it going to be 8? I would hate to say, going back to Samsung, why are you charging? And that 17 Air is going to be very, very expensive. I can promise you. It's going to be cutting edge technology. It'll be the thinnest device ever released, mobile phone device ever released. Are they going to put 12 gigs in there? It's going to be probably $1,500, $1,600, $1,700. So why are you going to charge all this money, $1,700 for a phone, and you're not even putting in the best tech you got in it, right? Or you're not speccing it out, right? So, little things like that bug me. But it's up to us, the consumer, to buy it or not. So, but the news we have right now, just the Pro Max is getting 12 gigs of RAM. Now, that's not to say in the future, Apple could come out, or a leak could come out and say, oh no, yeah, the 17 Air is getting it too. So this leaker could have had news, or his source could have just proved to him that showing the model number. Hey, I got the 17 Pro Max model number. and shows it's getting 12 gigs of RAM. We got a memory chip here. Our big supplier, they just put in a huge order for 12 gigs of 12 gig chips. Could be something like that. Not saying that Apple does not have plans for the 17 Air, but his source, whoever put the story out, his source could have only knowledge of the 17 Pro Max, right? I'm assuming, I might, not yet, but I might be willing to bet that Apple does you will finally see 12 gigs of RAM in the 17 Air model. And maybe the 17 Pro just 8 gigs of RAM. Or maybe the 17 just 8 gigs of RAM. Or we're still really, really early. So technically you could see 12 gigs in the Pro Max, 12 gigs of RAM in the Air, 12 gigs of RAM in the Pro. But this story says the Pro Max is the only device getting 12 gigs of RAM. So again, Apple could change their mind, but just keep this piece of information with you. So now that the iPhone 16 launch is behind us, we are all talking about the 17 series, because the 16 series, basically the same phone, just a few internal components upgraded, but basically the same phone as the 15 series. It all looks the same, with a couple of minor improvements. Now, this tip, the 12 gigs of RAM for the 17 Pro Max, comes from a reliable tipster. So I've seen this tipster's name before in a couple of reliable pieces of news, right? It's said to be more likely, quote unquote, that the 17 Pro Max gets 12 gigs of RAM, while the 17 Pro sticks to just 8, which is what is inside of all iPhone 16 models this year. According to this leak, Samsung is hitting issues with its memory module production line, and that means there's not going to be enough components to fit inside the millions of iPhone 17 Pros that Apple wants to order, as well as the 17 Pro Max phones. That's a big issue. When your supplier can't supply you with all of your parts that you need to build a phone, and so you're saying, well, Apple's asking Samsung, because Samsung produces these memory chips for Apple, right? Again, newsflash, yes, it's an Apple product, and yes, they make their own CPU, or should I say design their own CPU. TSMC actually makes it, but a lot of these parts, like the speaker, the vibration motor, the memory in there, Apple does not make, Apple does not produce, Apple does not design. It's produced by other companies. So what if Samsung has been tripping over their own feet producing chips this last year or two, and Apple's saying, so you're telling me you don't have enough chips to supply us with 12 gigs for the whole lineup, or for at least the Pros in the Air? Samsung's like, nope. Great. Well, I guess we'll just put all the 12 gigs in the Pro Max, and everything else gets 8. That's not good. That's not good at all. So they're saying this is not a completely new rumor. Well-respected analyst Ming-Chi Kuo has previously said that 12 gigs of RAM would be an iPhone 17 Pro Max exclusive, and did not go into further details. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? How would you feel if you got a 17 Pro or a iPhone 17 Air and it only had 12 gigs of RAM? I would not be happy, but it is what it is. Look, and if you, the consumer, are not satisfied with what a company is putting out there, not just Apple, but any company, don't buy the product. That's your only way to basically be heard, right? You can complain all you want on social media, but where it hits they're probably just going to laugh at you. Where it hurts, for these companies, is in the pocket. So if you're not supporting a decision a company is making, then simply don't buy the product. That's about all we can do as a consumer, and then over time they will probably learn their lesson, but who knows. Apple, I believe, is the most valuable company in the world, but look, if they see their numbers going way down, then for a certain model, then they may make changes, right? You never know. But keep it locked in. eSIM Studios, I'm going to keep a very, very close eye on this information, and we'll bring you the very latest. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I got to run, have other obligations, but don't forget, this Friday, we're going to have a giveaway. I'll probably think of something to give away, something cool to give away this evening. I'll go ahead and schedule the giveaway live stream on Friday, way in advance, probably tomorrow at the latest, Wednesday. But I'll put it out there. We'll schedule it so you know when to tune in so you can win something cool. I do appreciate the time, as always. Please be safe this afternoon. Brian, Daniel, appreciate you joining us today. Have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow, as always. Peace.